this is probably a really bad time to sell you my new merch because I might be saying some not so friendly things about books you like. But you can now wear my goofy face on the go, to the grocery store, to the laundromat. Do those things exist anymore? Maybe you want to wear it as PJs? I don't know. And for a limited time, you can save $5 by clicking the link in my description box. There are t-shirts, sweaters, tank tops, hoodies. It's snazzy, it's fashion. Wear this to a job interview and you will immediately get hired. I'm just kidding, don't do that. Well, I mean, it might work. Hi everyone, my name is Holly and I very often talk about books that make me go,
ooh, wow, this is amazing.
But sometimes I like to take a moment and talk about books that make me go,
ew, gross, this is terrible.
So today we are talking about all of the books that I read this year that really sucked. In 2019, we saw books from authors that we have wanted from for years, and books that were just so amazing and that I literally can't shut up about. But we also saw some books that just didn't belong in that hype zone. Books that no one should ever read, even with a gun pointed to their head. So without over-exaggerating anymore, let's go ahead and talk about these terrible books. In my opinion. Remember, books are subjective and you could love these books, and I love that for you. Let's start with might be the most controversial book on this list, and that is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Yes, I still have my arc just so I could rant about it one more time. Oh, the sweet glory. I know this book has such a hardcore community and I really don't want to go stepping on anyone's toes, especially as someone who walked into this book and realized it's not what they really wanted and stepped right back out. Let's start with the positives. As little as there are. The beginning of this is actually so interesting. We are introduced to two main characters, Gideon and Harrow, in a really cool way. It's a competition among heirs of these 8 houses that serve the Necrolord in order to join him by his side. This book combines sci-fi elements with fantasy elements and magic, which is not such a bad idea, but this one really wasn't executed very well. We get a desolate living space, we get necromancy and long swords, and then bam! Spaceships. Okay, whatever, but why? And maybe this is why the community is so passionate about this book, because they get it. They understand it, and if you're someone like me who found everything vague as fork and Gideon to be an absolute asshole, then welcome to my neck of the woods. Hey, I offended one community of people, why not go for the jugular and offend another massive community of people? The Grey Bastards by Jonathan French. This is a book that I almost didn't talk about when I read it. It's a book about orcs. This was one of my most anticipated books. I was so excited to read it, but now it's landed on my shit list of books, and honestly at this point I am not apologetic about it at all. Even more so after all the men on Goodreads called me a feminazi. Have you seen my bookshelves? Jesus. I'm opening up another really bad discussion of this book, and I really don't want to do that. All I'm going to say about this book is that I found it extremely problematic, and I'm not really going to go into it, but you can go to the Goodreads page and read the low star ratings because a lot of people mention pretty much everything that I saw. Just overall, women and LGBTQ plus characters are really just like beaten down in this book, and it's just not good. And I am not one to be offended by things at all. I could care less for most stuff. I mean, one of my favorite books is The Borrow, for freaking sake. If you've read this book, then you know what I'm talking about. That's all. This is the first time I ever threw a book in the garbage bin. Hey, I don't love losing subscribers, so I'm going to keep this one just a little bit on the shorter side. The Star-Touched Queen by Roshani Joshki. I really picked some rough books to trash in this video. Buy my merch. Here's the thing. I'm gonna talk about it because I know you guys want me to, because I do have an opinion on it. The reason why I wasn't going to read it, or I was even considering unhauling it, is because I don't like romance? Da 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 da. Romance book or not, I say it didn't really hit the mark, and I know people who love romance and they say that for a romance book This book gave them everything they wanted. But I guess I just don't see it because I am not a romance fan, but I was really excited to get to it because it's a loosely based retelling of Greek mythology centered around Hades and Persephone, and the setting is inspired by Indian culture. So you could see why I was very interested, and the publishers hyped it up, rightfully so, and it seemed like it was going to be very story heavy, but it wasn't. In fact, the story just kind of starts and you're plopped right in the middle of a marriage ceremony, and then the characters are transported into a new world like you're on mushrooms or something. I don't do drugs, but I can definitely say I've experienced them by reading this book. The plot stopped being exciting, and the author tried to shove as many freaking metaphors as she possibly could in your face. If you want lyrical writing that makes sense, pick up The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex Iharo. The Ruin of Kings by Jen Lyons is next, and oh boy do I have some opinions. This is one of the most confusing books I have ever read, and that's fine. I mean, I definitely think it's a book to keep an eye on if you're interested in that. It definitely deserves a spot in the epic fantasy genre, that's for sure. Those people who want a complex, multi-timeline, multi-point of view experience that you really need like a picture-perfect image to understand and to really have fun reading it all, then this is a great one to add to your repertoire. I love saying that word, repertoire. I probably said it wrong. The premise is so intriguing, but it seems like while the author was trying to execute this wonderful idea, she forgot that she had to explain the world to the readers. And the writing is good, it shows a lot of potential on its surface, but I feel like the author thinks that we can just know what's going on in her head. If I really wanted to have fun reading this, I was going to have to sit down and pump in countless hours trying to figure out all the different timelines and sketch out my freaking maps. And you know that meme where like the lady is trying to figure out all the mathematics and shit? Like, that was me reading this book. And that's not something I am willing to do. So I skim read the last 300 pages and I never went back. The next book that I am excited to pummel to the ground is, am I Hufflepuff anymore? I don't even know. The Sisters of the Winterwood by Rena Rosner. This one just didn't pan out the way that I thought it was going to. The impression I got was that it was going to be a adult magical book centered around fairy tales. And believe it or not, I do enjoy myself a good fairy tale. But was it that? Sorta. Not really. It turns out this book is actually romance trash. It should be titled Lovers of the Winterwood. Also, not adult. No, 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 no. This is pure YA, and again, there is nothing wrong with YA, but boy. This is literally two sisters who get stranded in a cabin because their parents suck and they leave them all alone. These two girls can transform into animals, which is super rad until they get horny AF, and when they meet these two boys, their personalities totally changed, and it just had that YA element that I always hate. It got angsty. It became a teenage orgy mess, and it lost its magical element completely. Now I'm going to talk about The Monster of Elendhaven by... who was this by? Jennifer Geisbrecht. Another book that I feel like was advertised so very falsely. It looks like horror, it sounds like horror, and it even looks like horror, but it's a romance. Things started out so well, the setting was so vivid and dark, you're introduced to the city that is very grimy, and it's called Elendhaven. In other words, the perfect place for a monster to call a home, aka our main character who finds his taste for killing. Doesn't that sound amazing? But you gotta believe me and the other Goodreads reviewers who have dropped this rating to a 3.5 when we say romance fucked it up. It's an LGBTQ plus romance, which is the one good thing about it. They were eccentric yet flat at the same time, so that's a feat that deserves a reward. It was this weird, erotic, awkward 100-page novella that was a total miss for me. So while we're in the middle of this mess, go ahead and like this video. Up next, I have The Boy and His Dog at the End of the World by C.A. Fletcher. Believe me when I say that I was just as excited as the next reader to go to my bookshelf and crack open this dystopian book that has such a cute puppy on the cover. And it's published by Orbit, which is a book publishing company that can literally do no wrong. They just got it wrong this teensy little time. teensy. The first 100 pages can literally be summed up in a couple lines. You're introduced to the main character, a thief steals his dog, the main character sails off to try and get his dog back. You would think that there would be a lot of action and a lot of cool places that you get to visit, but you don't. The voice of the main character is so incredibly dry. You're following a 13 or 14-year-old boy, and he literally speaks like your grandpa. He sees a roller coaster and he complains about it. He sees a casino and thinks it looks exciting. This kid would probably hate Minecraft, and that is just so unrealistic to me. About halfway through this, I was so exhausted and bored, and I totally understand what the author was trying to do. Paint a brutal landscape of a world that has fallen apart, but I just found it so tedious. And the final book I have here today is The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg. Have you noticed that I've been putting up pictures almost this entire time? That's because I don't keep books I don't like. Have you ever played one of those really bad video games where during a cutscene, the animated characters are kind of just standing there, kind of blocky looking? That's pretty much this book. Yes, I know, it's a book about basically Disney princesses who are robots and they're supposed to be incredibly perfect and flawless, but it just didn't do it for me. And then we get to the story and there were just so many issues and so many plot holes, and this is a dystopian. You know when you picture a dystopian and you think of this desolate, bleak world, and they're supposed to give you this big catastrophic feeling? This one felt so small scale. You're in this theme park, which should have been so exciting, and it wasn't at all. You don't even get like food descriptions of, I don't know, carnival fries or freaking elephant ears or something. I wanted more scenes with rides and carnival games, and we don't get to see any of that. In fact, most of this book consists of courtroom documents and video surveillance footage and shit like that. I just found it so boring. I was never fully immersed, and then the insta-love just knocked me out completely. Well, I know I might have upset a couple people here, but I hope you understand that this is just an opinion and my experience with these books in particular. I love so many books, I read so many books, and I'm just not going to enjoy all of them. So why not make a list about them? Tell me down below some books that you read this year that you absolutely hated, and I want you to be as brutal as possible, even if it's Joanna Crombie. Come on, bring it, babe. Bring it. Go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't, because I upload videos every single week. Buy my merch because you know you want to. And go ahead and follow me on Instagram at Holly Hearts Books and on Twitter at Holly Niece. And until we meet again, happy reading.